Welcome to APS Stories. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Maxwell Max Hargrove stood at the window of his study, watching the California sunset paint the sky in hues of crimson and gold. At 52, he was at the pinnacle of his life, a self-made man who had built Ridge Security Solutions from nothing into a billion-dollar private military and security contracting company. The ranch-style mansion in Malibu overlooking the Pacific was just one symbol of his success. Behind him, on his mahogany desk, sat the diamond-encrusted watch he purchased for Bianca, his wife of nearly 15 years. Their anniversary was tomorrow, and he'd planned everything meticulously. A private dinner at Nobu, followed by a surprise. Paperwork for the vineyard in Napa she'd always wanted. After years of building his empire, Max was finally ready to step back, reconnect with his family, and enjoy the fruits of his labor. The sound of laughter drifted up from the pool area. Max smiled, expecting to see his children, 17-year-old twins Aria and Aiden, but instead saw Bianca lounging with Dex Caldwell, their neighbor and Bianca's supposed tennis instructor. Something in their body language made Max's smile fade. Their posture was too intimate, their laughter too private. Max's phone buzzed with a text from Frank Winslow, his head of security and oldest friend since their days in Force Recon. Package received. Contents as expected. Meeting tomorrow, 0900, Max texted back. Confirmed. For 6 months, Frank had been gathering evidence. Max hadn't wanted to believe his wife of 15 years could betray him, but his instincts, the same ones that had kept him alive in war zones, had been screaming. Tomorrow he'd know for certain. The door opened behind him, and his daughter Aria walked in, her face lighting up when she spotted the watch box. "Is that for Mom?" "For your anniversary?" she asked, dark eyes sparkling. Once his little girl who followed him everywhere, Aria had grown distant over the past 2 years, spending more time with her mother and adopting Bianca's dismissive attitude toward Max's brutish profession. "It is," Max replied, closing the box. "But your mother might appreciate it." Aria's smile dimmed. "She'd probably prefer if you were around more." "We all would." "That's going to change," Max said earnestly. "I'm scaling back, planning to be home more." "Too little, too late," Aria muttered, then caught herself. "Sorry, Dad." "It's just, we've heard that before." Max felt the familiar stab of guilt. He'd missed recitals, games, and dinners. But he'd built everything for them, hadn't he? "Where's your brother?" he asked, changing the subject. "With Clayton," she replied. Clayton Reed was Bianca's cousin who had moved into their guest house 6 months ago. The kids had quickly bonded with the charming laid-back artist, especially Aiden, who had started calling Clayton CDAP behind Max's back. That night, Max sat alone at the dinner table he'd specially arranged with candles and Bianca's favorite flowers. His wife had texted that she was caught up with the charity committee and the kids were studying at friends' houses. As he sipped his bourbon, Max opened his laptop to review the files Frank had sent over: photos, text messages, bank transfers, hotel receipts. The betrayal was worse than he'd imagined. Chapter 2. Conspiracies and Calculations. At precisely 9 a.m., Frank Winslow entered Max's office at Ridge Security Headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. The imposing former Marine's face was grim as he dropped a thick folder on the desk. "It's all there, boss." been going on for at least 2 years. Max leaned back in his chair, face impassive. Tell me. Dex Caldwell is more than just her tennis coach. They've been meeting at the Malibu Bay Hotel twice a week. But that's just the surface. Frank hesitated. Bianca, Dex, and Clayton have been planning this for over a year. Clayton isn't really her cousin. He's Dex's brother. They're after Ridge Security. Max's eyes narrowed. Explain. Bianca's been collecting information on your contracts, especially the government ones. She's copied files, recorded conversations. Clayton's been buddying up to the kids to create distance between you and them. They're setting you up for the perfect divorce. One where she gets everything, including the company. Max stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. And the children! Frank's voice softened slightly. They don't know the full plan, but they've been manipulated. Clayton's been telling them stories about your past operations, twisted versions that make you sound like a war criminal. Dex has been playing the hero, stepping in as the good influence they supposedly need. And Bianca's lawyer? Selena Porter. Specializes in high-profile divorces. Has a reputation for destroying husbands in court. They've already had multiple consultations. Max turned, his blue eyes cold as steel. What about our contingency plan? Frank nodded. Operation Trojan is ready. All assets in position. But Max, are you sure? Once we start, there's no going back. They made their choice, Max said, his voice deadly calm. Now I'll make mine. Later that afternoon, Max invited Walter Brooks, his longtime attorney and the only other person he trusted completely, to his office. They're making their move tomorrow night, Max explained. At our anniversary dinner, Walter, a silver-haired man in his 60s, shook his head sadly. 15 years, and it comes to this. What do you need from me? Everything we discussed needs to be ready. The new will, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, and most importantly, the trap. Walter raised an eyebrow. The bait needs to be irresistible. Are you sure about using the government contracts as leverage? It's the only thing valuable enough to make them show their true colors completely, Max replied. Ridge Security is expanding into international territories next month. Afghanistan, Sudan, Ukraine. Government contracts worth billions. Bianca and her lovers think they'll get control of the company before that happens. And the children? Walter asked softly. Max's face hardened. They're old enough to make their choices. I gave them everything, and they chose strangers over their father. They need to learn that actions have consequences. As evening fell, Max returned home to find Aiden playing video games in the living room. His son barely acknowledged him with a grunt. Where's your sister? Max asked, setting down his briefcase. Out with Clayton. They're looking at art schools for her. Aiden's tone was dismissive. I thought she was considering business school. Following in my footsteps. Aiden snorted. Nobody wants to follow in your footsteps, Dad. Clayton says. What does Clayton say? Max interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. Aiden finally looked up, defiance in his eyes. He says men like you are dinosaurs. That your type of business is built on blood money and exploitation. That mom deserves better. Max felt the last thread of hope for his son snap. I see. And you believe him? I've seen the news, Dad. I know what your company does. Max nodded slowly. And tomorrow? Will you be at the anniversary dinner? Mom says we should be. For appearances' sake. For appearances' sake, Max repeated. Well, it should be quite the performance. That night, Max made one final call from his secure line. Everything's in place, Frank confirmed. The accounts are ready, the evidence is secured, and the team is standing by. Your new identities and escape route are prepared if needed. Good, Max said. And the special delivery. We'll arrive exactly 1 week from tomorrow, as requested. Max hung up and gazed at the family portrait on his wall. A happy facade hiding years of deception. Tomorrow the masks would come off. And 1 week later, justice would be served. Chapter 3. A Last Supper. The private dining room at Nobu Malibu glittered with candlelight and ocean views. Max had arranged everything perfectly: Bianca's favorite flowers, vintage champagne, and a 7-course tasting menu. He arrived early, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, and slipped the maitre d' a generous tip to ensure their privacy. Mr. Hargrove, you've outdone yourself, the maitre d' commented. 15 years of marriage, quite the milestone. Indeed, Max replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. Quite the achievement. At precisely 7 o'clock, Bianca arrived, radiant in a designer red dress that Max recognized as new. Their children followed, Aria stunning in a black cocktail dress, Aiden uncomfortable in his suit. Both teenagers were glued to their phones, barely acknowledging their father. Maxwell, Bianca greeted, offering her cheek for a kiss. At 45, she was still breathtaking, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her figure maintained by rigorous workouts with personal trainers like Dex. This is excessive. Only the best for our anniversary, Max replied, pulling out her chair. I thought we should celebrate properly. Bianca's smile tightened. How thoughtful, especially considering how little time you've had for us lately. The first course arrived, bluefin tuna tartare, and an uncomfortable silence settled over the table as they began to eat. Max noted how both children kept checking their phones, exchanging furtive glances with each other. I was thinking, Max said casually, about taking some time off. Perhaps a family vacation to the Caribbean. Nearly choked on her water. Seriously? You're never around. And suddenly, you want family time. I've been building security for our future, Max replied evenly. But now I'm ready to enjoy what I've built with my family. Bianca set down her chopsticks. How convenient. Just as the children are nearly grown, the second and third courses came and went in tense conversation. Max watched as Bianca grew increasingly agitated, checking her watch repeatedly. By the fourth course, her patience had clearly run out. I think it's time, she said, nodding at Aiden, who pulled an envelope from his jacket and slid it across the table. What's this? Max asked, although he knew exactly what it contained. Divorce papers, Bianca said, her voice suddenly cold and businesslike. I've been patient, Maxwell. 15 years of your absences, your secrets, your business. I deserve better. The children deserve better. Max made a show of opening the envelope and scanning the documents. His face revealed nothing as he read the outrageous demands. Full custody of the children. The Malibu house. Properties in Aspen and New York. And most significantly, 75% of Ridge Security Solutions? I see, he said quietly. And this is what you want? Every penny you've earned is legally mine now, Bianca declared, her mask of civility dropping completely. I've put up with your warfare business, supported you while you built an empire on other people's misery. Now it's my turn. Max turned to his children. And you too? Is this what you want as well? Arya couldn't meet his eyes, but Aiden jutted his chin defiantly. We're changing our last name to Clayton's. He's going to adopt us once the divorce is final. Clayton Reed isn't even his real name, Max said flatly. Bianca paled slightly. What are you talking about? His name is Clayton Caldwell. Dex's brother. But then, you knew that, didn't you, Bianca? For just a moment, Bianca's composure cracked, but she quickly recovered. It doesn't matter. The point is, they've been more of a family to us than you ever were. You're just a sperm donor to us now, Aiden added cruelly, finally looking Max in the eye. Nothing more. Max nodded slowly, folding the papers and placing them in his inner jacket pocket. He didn't argue or plead. Instead, he simply stood, placed several $100 bills on the table, and looked at each family member in turn. 15 years ago, I made vows to you, Bianca. I promised to provide, protect, and be faithful. I kept those promises. His voice was quiet, controlled. I built an empire for this family. I gave you everything you ever wanted. And this is how you repay loyalty? With betrayal. He turned to his children. I understand you're angry. I wasn't always present. But everything I did, every contract I took, every risk I faced was to secure your futures. Remember that in the days to come? Without another word, Max walked out of the restaurant into the cool California night. Behind him, he could hear Bianca already on the phone, likely calling Dex or Clayton to celebrate their victory. In his car, Max made a single call. It's done, he told Frank. They made their move exactly as predicted. Activate Operation Trojan. Roger that, Frank replied. And Max, I'm sorry it came to this. I'm not, Max said, his voice hardening as he drove away from his old life. They chose their side. Now they'll live with the consequences. For the next week, Max vanished completely. No calls, no messages, no trace. Meanwhile, Bianca and her conspirators celebrated, believing they had won everything. They had no idea what was coming. Chapter 4. Ghosts and Shadows. While Bianca and her new family celebrated their apparent victory, Max disappeared into a world few knew existed. To those who had wronged him, he was gone, perhaps broken by betrayal, perhaps fleeing in shame. But in reality, Max had merely stepped into the shadows, a realm he knew intimately from his years building Ridge Security. 3 days after the disastrous anniversary dinner, Max sat in a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Around him, computer screens displayed surveillance feeds of his former home, his company headquarters, and the luxury condo where Dex and Clayton Caldwell lived. Another monitor tracked his children's cell phones and social media accounts. They've moved fast, Frank reported, sliding a tablet across the table. Bianca's already filed emergency motions for temporary control of Ridge Security's domestic operations. Max scrolled through the legal documents. Let her have it, for now. Frank raised an eyebrow. You're giving up the company? No, Max replied calmly. I'm giving them exactly what they want, so they'll lower their guard. The domestic operations are just the visible tip of the iceberg. The real value lies in the international contracts and our classified government work, which they know nothing about. On another screen, Max watched as Clayton helped Arya load boxes into his Porsche. She was moving out of the family home and into the Caldwell brothers' condo. His son had already relocated 2 days earlier. They've completely turned the kids against you, Frank observed, using them as pawns. Max's jaw tightened. They made their choice. But choices have consequences. Later that day, Max met with Diego Vasquez, a former CIA operative who now worked exclusively for Ridge Security's Black Ops division. The offshore accounts are untraceable, Diego confirmed, and the shell companies are solid. We've moved 80% of the liquid assets and all the classified contract information. What about Phantom Protocol? Max asked. Diego nodded grimly. Ready to activate on your command. But boss, are you sure? This will burn everything down, including parts of your life that might still be salvageable. Max's expression remained impassive. Nothing is salvageable. They've seen to that. That evening, Max visited an unassuming law office in Glendale. Inside, Walter Brooks waited with a woman Max had never met, Irene Blackwood, a forensic accountant with a reputation for finding money no matter how well it was hidden. Mr. Hargrove, Irene began without preamble. I've analyzed the financial maneuvers your wife and the Caldwell brothers have been making. They've been planning this for nearly 3 years. She slid several documents across the desk. Bianca has been siphoning funds from your joint accounts into offshore holdings. Nothing substantial enough to raise flags, but collectively about $7 million. The Caldwells have invested heavily in shell companies positioned to acquire Ridge Security's assets once they gain control. And the government contracts? Max asked. That's their primary target, Irene confirmed. The Department of Defense's new security initiative is worth billions. Once they control Ridge, they plan to leverage your classified clearances to access those contracts. Max exchanged a look with Walter. They don't realize those clearances are tied to me personally, not the company. Exactly, Walter replied. And they certainly don't know about Contingency Omega. Max stood, looking out the window at the fading daylight. How are the preparations for next week? Walter produced a sealed envelope. Everything's ready. The legal documents, the evidence packets, the federal contacts. Once we initiate, there's no turning back. They initiated this, Max said coldly. I'm merely finishing it. 5 days after the anniversary dinner, Max observed through surveillance as Bianca hosted a celebration at the Malibu house. Through directional microphones, he listened as Dex Caldwell toasted to their new future. To Bianca, Dex declared, champagne glass raised. The woman with the patience and cunning to liberate an empire from a tyrant. The gathered guests, mostly Bianca's friends who had never liked Max, laughed appreciatively. And to our new home, Clayton added, arm around Aiden's shoulders. Soon to be the headquarters of the new Caldwell Security Consulting Group. Max watched as his children laughed along, champagne glasses in their underage hands. Arya leaned against Clayton affectionately, while Aiden played video games on a console that Max had bought him for his birthday. "They're already rebranding the company," Frank observed, disgusted. Max nodded. "Record everything. We'll need it for what comes next." In the final hours before his plan activated, Max made one last visit to the grave of his father, William Hargrove, a hard-working construction foreman who had died when Max was 19. "You always said a man's word was his bond, Dad," Max murmured, placing a single stone on the headstone, a tradition from his father's mining background. "You taught me that loyalty means everything, that family comes first." He stood in silence for several minutes, the wind rustling the cemetery's trees. "Tomorrow I honor those lessons, not by forgiving betrayal, but by ensuring it has a price." Chapter 5. The Architect of Ruin. On day 6 after the anniversary dinner, Bianca Hargrove woke to the news that she was officially the interim CEO of Ridge Security Solutions. The judge, swayed by her legal team's arguments about Max's abandonment and erratic behavior, had granted emergency control pending the final divorce settlement. The Caldwell brothers wasted no time moving into Max's corner office at Ridge headquarters. By noon, they were already meeting with the executive team, outlining their vision for the company's new direction. What they didn't know was that every word was being recorded, every email monitored, every phone call tracked. In a secure facility 30 miles away, Max watched the takeover unfold on multiple screens. Beside him, a team of elite Ridge operatives, men and women who owed their lives and livelihoods to Max, prepared for the final phase of Operation Trojan. "Status report," Max ordered. Yvonne Cortez, Ridge's head of cybersecurity, stepped forward. "They've accessed the mainframe as expected, sir. They're currently exploring the contract directories, focusing on government partnerships. And the false trail, in place and highly convincing. They've already downloaded the fake DoD contract files. The tracking software is embedded and active." Max nodded approvingly. Diego, the former CIA operative, checked his tablet. "Federal contacts are briefed and standing by. Packets ready for delivery to all relevant agencies. Just awaiting your final go-ahead." Frank approached with a satellite phone. "We've confirmed the mansion's security systems have been compromised as planned. They fired most of your loyal staff and replaced them with Caldwell people. And my children?" Frank's expression softened slightly. "Still at the mansion. Arya's planning to enroll at UCLA for the fall semester. Art program, not business. Aiden's talking about changing his name legally next week." For just a moment, pain flickered across Max's face, but it quickly hardened into resolve. "Tomorrow is the 7th day," he said quietly. "Biblical, isn't it? 6 days of their creation, 1 day of reckoning." That evening, Max sequestered himself in a private room with Walter Brooks. The attorney laid out 9 distinct envelopes on the table. "Everything's prepared according to your specifications," Walter confirmed. The first envelope contains the federal evidence. The second has the financial proof of their conspiracy. The 3rd through 8th contain the individual packages for each conspirator and family member. "And the 9th?" Max asked. Walter's face grew grave. "The nuclear option. Are you absolutely certain you want to include this? It goes beyond punishment into..." He hesitated. Into justice, Max finished. Yes, included. They chose to destroy a family. Actions have consequences. Meanwhile, at the Malibu mansion, Bianca hosted another celebration. This one larger and more extravagant than the last. The house was filled with guests, including Selena Porter, her divorce attorney. Several Ridge security executives who had quickly pledged loyalty to the new regime. And a handful of potential investors the Caldwell brothers had courted. In the middle of dinner, Aiden raised his glass in an impromptu toast. To Mom and my new dads, he declared, slightly drunk on expensive champagne. For freeing us from the Hargrove legacy. Bianca beamed with pride, while Clayton and Dex exchanged satisfied looks. After dinner, they gathered in Max's former study, now redecorated to Bianca's taste, to discuss business. The DoD contracts are the golden goose, Dex explained to Bianca. Once we secure those, we'll be looking at annual revenues in the billions. What about Maxwell's military contacts? Bianca asked. Won't they be loyal to him? Clayton waved dismissively. Most of those old dinosaurs are retired. The new administration wants fresh blood. Besides, with your controlling interest and his disappearance, we have a solid legal position. Speaking of which, Selena Porter interjected, has there been any word from Maxwell or his attorneys? Not a peep, Bianca replied smugly. I think he's finally realized he's beaten. Dex raised his glass. To the fallen king who never saw the checkmate coming. As midnight approached, Max made one final call to a secure line connected to a very specific government office. This is Hargrove, he identified himself. Authorization code Sierra Echo Victor Echo November. Activate Phantom Protocol, effective 0800 tomorrow. Authorization confirmed, came the response. Phantom Protocol active at 0800. Be advised, Mr. Hargrove, this is irreversible. I'm counting on it, Max replied, before hanging up. In the pre-dawn hours, as his former family slept soundly in the home he had built, Max drove to a private airfield where a Ridge security helicopter awaited. As he boarded, Frank handed him a secure tablet. The final checklist, boss. Once you sign off, everything launches automatically. Max reviewed each item methodically, then pressed his thumb to the biometric confirmation box. It's done, he said, looking out as the helicopter lifted off. By this time tomorrow, they'll understand exactly what they've awakened. Chapter 6. 0 hour. At precisely 8 a.m. On the 7th day after the anniversary dinner, Operation Trojan activated. Bianca Hargrove was enjoying breakfast on the terrace of the Malibu mansion when her phone pinged with a news alert. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her lips as she read the headline. Ridge Security in Crisis. Mass resignation of key executives as stock plummets. Before she could process this, her phone rang. Dex Caldwell, panic evident in his voice. Turn on CNBC now, he shouted without preamble. Bianca rushed to the living room and switched on the television. A somber-faced financial reporter stood outside Ridge Security headquarters. Unprecedented development as over 30 senior executives simultaneously resigned this morning. Sources report that classified government contracts valued at over $3 billion have been withdrawn. Ridge Security stock has been halted after dropping 60% in pre-market trading. What the hell is happening? Bianca whispered as Arya and Aiden stumbled into the room, drawn by the commotion. Her phone buzzed constantly, texts from friends, calls from her lawyer, emails from bank representatives. She ignored them all, transfixed by the unfolding disaster on screen. At Ridge headquarters, chaos reigned. Dex and Clayton Caldwell found themselves locked out of the executive floor. Security personnel they didn't recognize informed them that their credentials had been revoked. "This is ridiculous. I'm the CEO's partner." Dex shouted. The security officer remained impassive. "Sir, we have no record of your employment or authorization." In the lobby, federal agents from multiple agencies, FBI, SEC, Defense Criminal Investigative Service, streamed through the doors, presenting warrants and beginning to secure computer systems and files. Clayton managed to get through to Bianca. "It's Max," he said breathlessly. "It has to be. Somehow he's pulled the rug out from under us." "That's impossible," Bianca insisted. "I have legal control of the company." The judge signed the orders. "Tell that to the feds who just seized my laptop." Across the city, similar scenes unfolded at the Caldwell brothers' condo, Selena Porter's law offices, and the homes of several co-conspirators who had helped orchestrate the takeover. At the mansion, the doorbell rang. Bianca opened it to find a courier holding a thick manila envelope. "Delivery for Bianca Hargrove," he stated, handing her the package. "Signature required." With trembling hands, Bianca signed and took the envelope inside. The return address showed only Hargrove Enterprises, a company she'd never heard of. Inside the mansion's home office, she tore open the envelope. A letter in Max's handwriting sat atop a stack of documents. "Bianca, by now you've realized that your celebration was premature. What you're experiencing isn't a setback, it's annihilation. Ridge Security Solutions, the company you thought you seized, was merely the visible portion of my business empire. The real assets, the international contracts, the classified operations, the intellectual property were transferred to Hargrove Enterprises years ago as a contingency against exactly this type of betrayal. The company you now control is an empty shell burdened with substantial debt and pending litigation. The stock you thought would make you wealthy is now worthless. As for our personal assets, I've enclosed documentation proving your conspiracy with the Caldwell brothers. Evidence that nullifies our prenuptial agreement's generous provisions and triggers the infidelity clause. The offshore accounts you've been secretly funding have been frozen pending criminal investigation. You wanted a war, Bianca. Now you have one." "Max?" Bianca frantically paged through the documents. Financial records, surveillance photos, transcripts of conversations she thought private. Everything meticulously documented, damning beyond question. Her phone rang again. This time, documented, damning beyond question. Her phone rang again. This time, her bank. With growing horror, she learned that all accounts were frozen pending investigation of financial fraud. Her credit cards had been canceled. The mortgage on the mansion, which she thought paid off, had been transferred to a new entity that was now demanding immediate payment. In his bedroom, Aiden received his own envelope. Inside was a shorter note. "Son, you declared me just a sperm donor. Very well. All financial support, including your trust fund, college tuition, and allowance, has been terminated. The cars, credit cards, and other benefits provided by your sperm donor have been revoked. You chose your side." Live with it, your former father. Similar envelopes arrived for Arya, Clayton, Dex, and everyone else involved in the conspiracy. By noon, their world had completely unraveled. The mansion's utilities were shut off. Security personnel, not the regular team, but strangers with military bearing, arrived to secure the property pending ownership resolution. Luxury cars were towed away. Cell phone services discontinued. In a final devastating blow, evidence of the Caldwell brothers' past frauds, carefully compiled by Max's team, was delivered to federal prosecutors, resulting in their arrest on multiple charges, including conspiracy, wire fraud, and identity theft. As Bianca sat in the darkened mansion, her children shell-shocked beside her, her phone rang one last time before its service cut off. The caller ID showed unknown, but she knew who it was. "Maxwell, please," she began, her voice breaking. "We can talk about this." "There's nothing to discuss." Max's voice came through, cold and implacable. "You conspired to steal my life's work. You turned my children against me. You made your choice, Bianca. The kids had nothing to do with this. They're innocent. They're 17, not 7. They chose to reject their father and embrace criminals instead. Actions have consequences. What do you want?" Bianca whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Money? The house? What will it take to end this?" "You still don't understand," Max replied quietly. "This isn't a negotiation. This is justice." The line went dead. As darkness fell on the 7th day, Bianca and her children huddled in the mansion, all their plans in ruins, their futures uncertain. And Max? He watched from afar, his revenge just beginning. Chapter 7. Fallen Kingdoms. 1 week after Operation Trojan activated, the reality of their new circumstances had fully descended upon Bianca and the children. The mansion, once a showcase of luxury and privilege, had become a prison. With utilities disconnected and access to funds blocked, they survived on dwindling supplies and the charity of the few friends who hadn't abandoned them when the scandal broke. Bianca sat at the kitchen table, illuminated by battery-powered lanterns, reviewing the mounting legal crises. The divorce proceedings had taken a vicious turn. Max's legal team had presented evidence not only of her infidelity, but of criminal conspiracy. The judge, previously sympathetic to her claims, now regarded her with obvious contempt. Ridge Security Solutions, or what remained of it, had filed for bankruptcy protection. The Golden Goose government contracts had vanished, transferred months earlier to Hargrove Enterprises, a separate company Max had established as a contingency. The domestic security business, which Bianca now technically controlled, was weighed down by massive debt and pending lawsuits from clients and partners. Dex and Clayton Caldwell remained in federal custody, denied bail due to flight risk. Their extensive criminal history, meticulously documented by Max's team, included similar schemes targeting wealthy individuals across 3 states. The brothers faced decades in prison if convicted on all charges. In the living room, Arya and Aiden sat in numb silence. Their phones were dead, their social media accounts suspended, their friends suddenly unreachable. The reality of their father's rage and their role in provoking it was finally sinking in. "How could he do this to us?" Arya whispered, hugging her knees to her chest. "We're his children." Aiden stared at the blank television screen. "We told him we weren't. We said we'd change our names. Called him a sperm donor." His voice was hollow. "Guess he took us at our word." The doorbell rang, a rare occurrence now that the property had been marked with legal notices. Bianca rushed to answer, hoping for some reprieve. Instead, she found Roger Whitley, once her most ardent supporter among Max's business associates. "Roger, thank God," she began. "We need—" "Save it, Bianca," Roger interrupted coldly. "I'm not here as a friend. The board has authorized me to present a settlement offer." He handed her an envelope. "Max is willing to release some funds, enough for you and the kids to relocate to a modest apartment. In exchange, you sign over all remaining claims to Ridge properties and assets." "That's extortion," Bianca exclaimed. Roger's face hardened. "No, it's mercy, which is more than you deserve. Max built that company from nothing, gave jobs to thousands, created security infrastructure that protects millions. And you tried to steal it all because you were bored." "It wasn't like that," Bianca protested weakly. "Save your performances for someone who'll believe them," Roger replied. "The offer expires in 48 hours. After that, Max will proceed with criminal charges." After Roger left, Bianca opened the envelope with trembling hands. The terms were brutally simple. In exchange for dropping her claims to Ridge and any marital assets, she would receive a one-time payment of $250,000, less than she used to spend annually on clothing alone. "Mom," Aria's voice came from behind her. "What are we going to do?" Bianca turned to face her daughter, seeing for the first time the fear beneath the girl's carefully maintained facade of confidence. "I don't know," she admitted. "Your father has. He's thought of everything." "He hates us," Aiden said flatly, joining them. "All those years he was gone, building his precious company, and now he's using it to destroy us." "No," Bianca corrected quietly. "We destroyed ourselves." That night, Bianca made a desperate decision. Using a prepaid phone purchased by one of her few remaining loyal friends, she called Frank Winslow, Max's right-hand man, and possibly the only person who might intercede on their behalf. "Mrs. Hargrove," Frank answered, his tone neutral. "I've been expecting your call." "Frank, please," Bianca begged. "The children are suffering." "Whatever Max's grievance is with me, they don't deserve this." A long pause followed. "With all due respect, ma'am, you involve them. You and the Caldwells used them as weapons against their father. Max heard his own son call him nothing but a sperm donor. His daughter refused to even look at him." "They're teenagers, Frank." "They were manipulated. We all were." Frank's laugh was without humor. "Max offered me $10 million to help the Caldwells take over Ridge. You know what I said? No amount of money is worth my loyalty. That's a choice you and your children could have made. Dot. So there's no hope? No appeal we can make?" "There's always a path to resolution, Mrs. Hargrove, but it won't be on your terms." "Not anymore." After hanging up, Bianca gathered the children in the kitchen. In the lantern light, she finally told them the full truth about her affair, about the Caldwell brothers' manipulation, about their collective role in destroying what Max had built. "So it's all been a lie? Arya asked, voice breaking. Clayton and Dex were just using us to get to Dad's company? Bianca nodded miserably. They saw us as pawns, honey. All of us. And we fell for it, Aiden added bitterly. Turned against Dad because some cool guys with Porsches told us he was the villain. Your father wasn't perfect, Bianca acknowledged. He was absent too often, put the company first too many times. But he never betrayed us the way we betrayed him. As dawn broke, Bianca made her decision. She would accept Max's settlement offer, not because it was fair, but because it was the only path forward. The mansion, the luxury, the social status, all of it was gone. Now, survival was the priority. Unknown to them, Max watched this unfold through surveillance feeds, his face impassive as his family confronted the consequences of their betrayal. Chapter 8. The Envelope. 10 days after the anniversary dinner, a black SUV pulled up to the mansion's gate. Two men in suits emerged, carrying a distinctive envelope, larger than the previous ones, sealed with red wax, stamped with the Ridge Security logo. The security personnel stationed at the property allowed them through. One of the men pressed the doorbell, while the other surveyed the once immaculate grounds, now showing signs of neglect. Aiden answered, his expression wary. Yes? Delivery for Bianca Hargrove and family, the first man stated formally. Direct from Mr. Brown. Hargrove. Signature required. Oh. Aiden hesitated, then called for his mother. Bianca appeared, looking exhausted and years older than she had just 2 weeks prior. Another message from Maxwell? She asked, her voice resigned. Yes, ma'am. This one requires immediate attention. Bianca signed for the envelope and took it inside. The family gathered in the kitchen, staring at the ominous package. Should we open it? Arya asked nervously. Last time, we don't have a choice, Bianca replied, breaking the seal. Inside was a single document, a comprehensive settlement agreement, and a handwritten note from Max. Bianca, Arya, and Aiden, this is my final communication to you. The enclosed document represents your last opportunity to salvage anything from the wreckage you've created. The terms are non-negotiable. Bianca will receive a one-time payment of $500,000 and retain her personal jewelry and clothing, nothing more. Arya and Aiden will each receive a trust fund of $1 million, accessible only for education and basic living expenses until age 30. These funds come with strict behavioral conditions outlined in Section 7. All of you will legally change your surnames. You've made it clear you no longer wish to be Hargroves, and I no longer wish you to bear my name. You will vacate the mansion within 48 hours. A furnished apartment in Santa Monica has been arranged for 6 months. After that, you're on your own. You will sign comprehensive non-disclosure agreements. Any public discussion of our marriage, divorce, or Ridge Security will result in immediate termination of all financial support. You will have no contact with me or any Ridge employee ever again. If these terms are accepted, sign the enclosed documents and the initial financial transfers will occur immediately. If rejected, I will proceed with criminal charges against all of you as co-conspirators in the Caldwell fraud scheme. You have until noon tomorrow to decide. Maxwell Hargrove. Bianca's hands shook as she read the document's details. The legal language was precise and merciless, designed to ensure they could never challenge Max again. "He's completely cutting us off," she whispered. "Not just financially, but entirely," Arya read through the trust fund conditions. "Listen to this. Any attempt to contact Maxwell Hargrove directly or through intermediaries will result in immediate and permanent termination of the trust." "He really hates us," Aiden said quietly. "No," Bianca corrected. "He's done with us." "There's a difference." Her phone rang, the prepaid one, which few people had the number for. She answered cautiously. "Mom." Arya watched as her mother's face drained of color. "What is it?" Bianca lowered the phone, her expression stunned. That was Selena. "The federal prosecutor has offered the Caldwell brothers a deal. Reduced sentences if they testify against co-conspirators." She swallowed hard. "Including me. And potentially you too, as accessories." "What?" Aiden exclaimed. "We didn't do anything illegal." "You accessed your father's private files," Bianca reminded him grimly. "Shared company information with the Caldwells. In the eyes of the law, that could be seen as corporate espionage." The reality of their situation hit with full force. Max had outmaneuvered them completely. His settlement offer wasn't generosity. It was their only escape from potential criminal charges. Arya reached for her mother's hand. "What do we do?" For the first time in days, Bianca's expression hardened with resolve. "We sign R. We take what he's offering. And then we rebuild our lives without him." They spent the evening reviewing the documents, understanding fully what they were agreeing to. By signing, they were not just accepting financial terms. They were agreeing to exile from their former lives. At 11:30 the next morning, Bianca called the number provided in the envelope. Within minutes, Walter Brooks arrived with a notary. "Mrs. Hargrove," Walter greeted formally. "Have you reached a decision?" Bianca nodded, gesturing to the signed documents on the table. "We accept Maxwell's terms." As the notary authenticated their signatures, Arya suddenly looked up. "Mr. What is it that Rains preaches and parties can do?" "Brooks, can you give my father a message?" Walter's expression remained neutral. "The agreement you just signed prohibits any communication." "Just tell him," Arya hesitated, then continued firmly. "Tell him I understand now. What loyalty means." Walter studied her for a moment, then inclined his head slightly. "I'll convey that message, Miss Hargrove. Though I should note, after today, that will no longer be your legal surname." After they left, Bianca's phone pinged with a banking notification. The Prost funds had been transferred. Within the hour, a moving company arrived to help them pack their essential belongings. As they prepared to leave the mansion for the last time, Aiden's phone, newly activated under the settlement terms, rang unexpectedly. The caller ID showed unknown. "Hello," he answered cautiously. "They're coming," his father's voice said without preamble. "The feds." "They'll be at the Malibu house in approximately 1 hour. Thanks." "What?" "Why?" "We signed the agreement." "This isn't about that," Max replied evenly. "The Caldwells made their deal. They've implicated your mother in criminal conspiracy. The agreement protects you and your sister, not her." "But You have exactly 1 hour to get her out of there, if that's what you choose to do. A passport and tickets to Costa Rica. No extradition treaty. Are in a waterproof container buried under the third decorative rock in the eastern garden. 50,000 in cash is with it. Why are you telling me this? Aiden asked, stunned. Because despite everything, you're still my son. This is the last time you'll hear from me. Make better choices in the future, Aiden. The line went dead. Aiden stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear, facing the most significant moral choice of his young life. Chapter 9. Ashes and Rebirth. 6 months after the anniversary dinner that shattered the Hargrove family, Maxwell Hargrove stood on the observation deck of Ridge Security's new headquarters in Singapore. The gleaming skyscraper, with its cutting-edge security features and commanding view of the harbor, represented his company's successful pivot to international markets. The quarterly numbers exceeded projections by 17%, Frank reported, joining him at the window. The Middle Eastern contracts alone are worth double our entire domestic operation. Max nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. And the new defense systems? Patents approved last week. The Pentagon is already inquiring about licensing terms. In the aftermath of the divorce and corporate upheaval, Max had emerged stronger than before. Ridge Security had shed its vulnerable domestic components and focused on its core strengths. High-level government contracts, proprietary security technology, elite protection services. The stock had not only recovered, but reached new heights. Any word from the States? Max asked, his tone carefully neutral. Frank hesitated before answering. Bianca took the escape route you provided, currently living under an assumed name in a coastal town in Costa Rica. The kids didn't go with her. Max raised an eyebrow. Oh. Aiden told her about the escape plan, but also called the U.S. Attorney's office. Turned himself in as a witness. His testimony, combined with the evidence we provided, has strengthened the case against the Caldwells. And Aria? Enrolled at UCLA as planned. Art major. She's using her mother's maiden name now. Living modestly on the trust fund stipend. Max turned from the window, his expression unreadable. And they haven't attempted contact? Not directly, Frank replied. Though Aria leaves flowers at your father's grave every month. She knows you visit when you're in the country. A flicker of emotion crossed Max's face, quickly suppressed. The past is the past, Frank. We've all made our choices. Later that evening, Max hosted a dinner for Ridge's executive team in their private dining room. As the company's leadership celebrated their remarkable turnaround, Diego approached with a tablet. Final confirmation, sir. The Caldwell brothers were sentenced today. 20 years each. No possibility of parole for at least 12. The judge cited the extraordinary breach of trust and predatory nature of their crimes. Max merely nodded, raising his glass. To justice, he said simply. The team echoed his toast, unaware of the complex emotions behind it. After dinner, Max retreated to his private office, a minimalist space with views of Singapore's night skyline. On his desk sat a single framed photograph, face down. It was the only personal item in the otherwise sterile environment. As he often did when alone, Max turned the frame over, revealing a family portrait taken years earlier. Bianca, Arya, and Aiden smiled beside him on the deck of their Malibu home, the Pacific Ocean sparkling behind them. For just a moment, regret flickered across his features. Then his phone rang, a business call from Washington. As he answered, Max returned the photograph to its face-down position. "Hargrove," he stated, his voice once again the confident, commanding tone of a man who had rebuilt his empire from the ashes of betrayal. 3 years later, on a rainy autumn day in Los Angeles, Max walked through the quiet cemetery where his father was buried. As expected, fresh flowers adorned the grave, Arya's monthly tribute. What he didn't expect was to find her there, kneeling beside the headstone. She looked up, startled by his approach. At 21, Arya had matured, her face thinner, her expression more serious than the carefree girl she'd once been. "Dad," she said simply, rising to her feet. Max stopped a few paces away. "Arya, you look well." An awkward silence fell between them, 3 years of separation creating a chasm wider than the physical distance. "I didn't expect to see you," Arya finally said. "You usually come on Sundays." "Change of schedule. International flight." Arya nodded, studying his face. "You look different." "Harder." "Things change," Max replied evenly. "People change." "Yes," she agreed quietly. "They do." Another silence, broken only by the patter of rain on nearby trees. "Aiden's at Stanford now," Arya offered. "Business program. Full scholarship." Max's expression remained neutral. "I should remain neutral." "Good for him." "He talks about you sometimes." About the lessons he learned. "And what lessons were those?" Max asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Arya met his gaze directly. "That loyalty isn't negotiable. That betrayal has consequences. That a man's word is his bond." Max recognized his father's sayings, principles he tried to instill in his children. "Better late than never, I suppose," he said dryly. Arya took a deep breath. "I know we can never go back. I know what we did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that we understand now. What it cost you to build what you built. What we threw away." Max studied his daughter, searching for signs of manipulation or deceit. He found none. Only the sincere regret of a young woman who had learned harsh truths about consequences. "Understanding is valuable," he acknowledged. "Though it doesn't change the past." "No," Arya agreed. "It doesn't." She hesitated, then reached into her bag and withdrew an envelope. "This is for you. Aiden and I wrote it together. It's not a request for reconciliation or money, just an accounting of what we learned. What we regret. You don't have to read it." She placed the envelope on top of her grandfather's headstone. "We don't expect forgiveness, Dad. We just wanted you to know that your lessons weren't wasted. Just delayed." Max made no move to take the envelope. "And your mother?" Arya's expression hardened. "I haven't spoken to her in over 2 years. Neither has Aiden. Her choices were consequences." Max nodded, understanding perfectly. The rain began to fall harder, but neither moved. "I should go," Arya said finally. "My flight leaves in a few hours." "Where to?" "Singapore, actually. Art therapy internship. Something flickered in Max's eyes. Interesting choice. It seemed right, Arya replied simply. Goodbye, Dad. She turned and walked away, not looking back. Her shoulders straight, despite the burden she carried. Max watched her go, then turned to his father's grave. What do you think, Dad? Is understanding enough? The rain provided no answer. After a long moment, Max picked up the envelope and slipped it into his coat pocket, unopened. As he walked back to his waiting car, Max reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had been betrayed by those he trusted most. He had exacted a terrible vengeance. He had rebuilt his empire stronger than before. But at what cost? Frank waited by the car, umbrella ready. Everything okay, boss? Max glanced back toward the cemetery, where Arya's figure had disappeared into the distance. No, he replied, honestly. But perhaps someday it might be. He entered the car without looking back again, the envelope heavy in his pocket, a bridge between past and future that he wasn't yet ready to cross. The betrayal had been absolute. The revenge complete. The price incalculable. Maxwell Hargrove had won everything and lost just as much. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I'll see you there.